All right, guys, let's talk a little UFC 300, right? It's all speculation, but Daniel Cormier comes out and says, I mean, he didn't say it like he was guessing. He said it like he was announcing that Michael Chandler is going to take on Conor McGregor, main event, UFC 300. Now, I'm assuming just from knowing Daniel that he was making a guess, and that's a really good guess. I'm not light on that guess. I would like to break it down, though, because I think you might find it interesting, and you might even learn something about the business. To do an event like 300, okay, which only has two pieces of precedence prior to it, 100 and 200. You were talking not only title fights, you were talking massive amounts of title fights. If I go back to between those two shows, what we do, about 6 belts were up for grabs? I know one of them fell apart there, but I think you understand my message. If you were to go back just to 100, you had 3, and you had the sport's biggest stars. George St. Pierre had to jerk the curtain for anybody. It really wouldn't matter who. George St. Pierre, the biggest star and the top draw in the entire industry, and the biggest star and the top draw the industry had ever had, wasn't the main event. That's how loaded 100 was. So when you go along those veins and you skip over and you go to 3, you're now talking about a non-title main event. I just think that you guys might find that interesting. Now, we always follow the rules in this sport that we make up as we go, but it is stated that if you have multiple titles on a card, the main event is whoever is the biggest. That is a policy that has officially been stated. So I do believe that you're going to have a title fight. The problem with having a title fight is we can't then adhere to that policy. Now, if we're throwing it out and we're not adhering to this policy, we can all just hit delete, get up and leave the room now and not even finish Uncle Chael talking to you. So let's go in the vein that we are going to stick with a policy. That means you don't have any title fights at all. Right? It wouldn't just mean that you're not main eventing one. You're not having any at all. There is not a scenario where Conor McGregor, even on a card like 300, isn't the main event. And just the way the finances of it work and are laid out, there is a possible way to not make him the main event. As unlikely as you might think that is, there is a possible way. Brock Lesnar was the biggest draw at UFC 200, without question. Fight that's still getting talked about because Mark Hunt's still suing over it. He wasn't the main event. He wasn't even the main attraction. I apologize. He was the main attraction, but he wasn't the main event. As I remember, he wasn't even the co-main. I believe Anderson versus Daniel was. Brock was third from the top. So how do you do that? You have George St. Pierre, who's paid more than anybody, and he wasn't the main event going back to 100. So how do you do that? And when you're talking about a card this big and you're willing to invest this much, you're going to do some things that you don't do on other nights, which I've just laid out for you. Having Brock Lesnar third from the top, having Anderson Silva fight a world champion, but it's not for the world championship because they won't go 5 rounds. There's things that happen. We can get it done, but it would be a massive message to the industry. Look, we got guys coming after Conor. They're coming. But the dates simply don't match up. Chimaev is coming for him. He's not there, but he's coming. I don't mean he's going to get in the ring and beat him. I'm talking about for the top billing and the top draw. Chimaev has a massive something behind him that has been fumbled unlike any piece of marketing that we've ever seen in this sport. But either way, he's coming for him. He's not there. He's coming for him. Adesanya was coming for him. Adesanya was one of the few that understood the game. See, the reason that Chimaev and Adesanya are in the discussion of coming for Conor is because they know that that is a title. They know that that's a spot, and they know that they can take it. Of the 767 guys under contract, there's 3 that know that that's a thing. There's 3 that know that there's a clear strategy that has to be invoked and it has to work to get to the spot. Everybody else is just trying to win fights. God bless those guys. We need them. We need them. But I love to use the example because whether you're talking about Adesanya or you're talking about McGregor, they have one thing in common. Neither of them won their last fight. When you're talking about Conor, the hottest star in all of this, everybody else is just trying to win fights. Conor McGregor is going to come in. He's going to headline over all of you. They're going to have to break the policy, break the deck, and break the bank just to get that done. He did not win his last fight. He has no championship. In fact, he didn't win the fight before that, or the one before that. I think I could say that one more time. I believe he's 1-5. I believe. But I'm trying to prove a point for you. He also is playing a different game. And when you have guys like Sean O'Malley, who's coming for him, Sean O'Malley's fighting the month before, so he won't be on the card. Adesanya has removed himself from the sport for a little bit of a period of time, so he won't be on the card. Chimaev dances to a different drum. We have no idea, but we sure can't count on him being on the card. My point is this: if they finally do have somebody that's actually a hot stepper, that's getting out there, is doing what needs to be done, and coming for a position which is up for grabs. They don't have a ranking by it. They don't write it down. There's not going to be a belt, and your coaches have never mentioned it to you, but it's still the most important spot there is, which is not that of champion. It is the top draw in the business. That spot, which is currently held by the same guy that held it last year, the year before that, and the 5 years before that, who is not a champion. But let's just say those guys that are coming for him are. Let's say Sean O'Malley, by example. It can't be Sean because Sean's fighting the month before. I'm attempting to prove a point here. Imagine if Sean was the leading act on UFC 300. Imagine that. And Conor McGregor was jerking the curtain. The biggest star in the sport. Well, Brock Lesnar was the big star as well. He jerked it twice. Twice in the same night. George St. Pierre was the biggest star before. They didn't put him as the main event. So I'm just trying to share this point with you, that it would be a massive deal if Conor and Chandler fight on 300. If they are the main event, it means we changed the policy. That's a really big deal. But if they're not the main event, it will be the first sign of the passing of a torch. The absolute first very clear sign that has ever been put forth is if somebody gets on the docket with Conor McGregor, that has always been the win, which looks like it's going to Michael Chandler. What a win. Red Penny Night. It's real. Unless, right, that would be a very coveted spot to be opposite Conor McGregor. That would be the number one thing you can do right now. I fully understand it. Unless you can headline over McGregor. And that is a game, and that is a position that of the 767 interchangeable mediocrities under contract, only 3 understand is worth fighting for. And if those 3 keep fighting, guys, I'm not convinced it's not exactly what Adesanya's doing, by the way. Adesanya's playing this game much like O'Malley, much like McGregor, on a very different level. Adesanya is well aware no principle gets in front of supply and demand, and you can't come back until you leave first. He's well aware of how hot, how red hot he will be by April of 2024 should he get a story going and come back, particularly if his mortal enemy, Dricus du Plessis, should get the belt in January, which does give him enough time. So the hottest storyline that our sport has seen, so hot that people couldn't talk about it because it made them uncomfortable, it was melting the airwaves hot. Du Plessis versus Izzy as at least viable in somebody's mind. I think that somebody is Izzy. And I don't think you're going to get the fight. I don't think that he's that interested unless you gave him something that none of you ever think about because you're like the other 767 interchangeable mediocrities. And I don't mean to insult you, but you don't. You don't think on this level, which is why you can't achieve on that level. He didn't give a damn. I'm talking about Izzy. He didn't give a damn about the belt. He's already had it. He didn't care about Du Plessis. He already ran from him. But if you sweeten the pot and told him he'll be the first person to headline over McGregor, a game that he's been playing and a title that he wants to win, all of a sudden, you're going to get the return of Izzy. He's going to take that spot and he's going to headline 300.